In this video, I'm going to walk you through a very simple way that you can eliminate the worry you have about your finances if you are a cash-flowing entrepreneur. In other words, you've built a business and it's got money coming in, and yet despite how much you're earning, you continue to remain worried about whether it's payroll, whether it's how the economy is going to go, whether it's rising ad cost. All of these things can reduce your effectiveness in the moment. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through a fairly logical step-by-step framework you can use to eliminate this financial anxiety. Now, quickly, if you don't know me, I'm Chandler Stevens. I am the somatic psychotherapist for purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are making the world a better and more beautiful place. And I'm the creator of the Grounded Founder Framework, helping these entrepreneurs establish more calm, more confidence, and more sustained energy. If you would like direct support with that, book a call with me at speakwithchandler.com. You'll see a calendar link there. It's got a little button that says Let's Chat. You can book a call there. For the time being, let's talk through this framework to eradicate the anxiety that is keeping you overthinking and underperforming. Now, what you're going to do to start this is identify the anxiety-provoking thought. Is there something you're telling yourself about the future, some idea you have about how things are going to go, that contributes to this sense of worry? And maybe the idea is something like, I'm going to run out of money and not going to have enough to cover payroll. Or my ad costs are going up and I'm not going to be profitable if this keeps going. Or the economy is going to take a downward turn, or whatever the case is. You can identify for yourself certain thoughts you have that are contributing to the worry you're experiencing. And you can verify this in the moment by checking in with yourself. What happens to your state when you entertain that line of thinking? When you endorse that thought that you're going to run out of money and not be able to cover payroll, how does that affect you? Now, if you see that that spikes your worry, well then congrats, you've uncovered an anxiety-provoking thought. That thought is doing its job. Its job is to provoke anxiety. So, you can get a sense here that when you entertain certain lines of thinking, when you engage in certain habits of thought, this contributes to the anxiety and the stress that you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Now the question is, when you're in such a state, when you're stressed out, when you're worried, when you're anxious like this, are you more or less capable of achieving your goals? Now I know it's possible to whip yourself up into a frenzy through this kind of thing, but really, if you just check in, are you more or less capable when you're in this stressed out state? Is this more or less likely that your thinking is going to be clear and focused? Are you more or less likely to be intentional rather than reactive in your behaviors? You can get a sense that when you're in this state, which is the direct result of entertaining these anxiety-provoking thoughts, you are in fact less capable. Now, that's likely not your goal, right? You don't want to be less capable. You want to show up at your best and your most capable so that you can give your best efforts to the goals that matter most, so you can actually live the kind of life you want to live. And what that means is you've got an opportunity to suspend that line of thinking that does not create the results you want for yourself. Which is to say, when you notice these thoughts come in, you can walk yourself through this step-by-step framework to get at the root of the anxiety that is driving this kind of thinking and creating a vicious circle of anxiety and anxiety-provoking thoughts and more anxiety and anxiety-provoking thoughts and more anxiety, on and on and on. So here's what you do. You write that thought out, whatever it is. I'm not going to be able to make a payroll. The economy is going to take a hit. My ad costs are going to keep going up. Whatever it is, you write out the thought. And you can see that this is a negative prediction about some future state. So you can ask yourself this. You can engage in a little reality testing and consider, are you able to predict the future with total certainty? Now, in your heart of hearts, I imagine the answer is no. Although you could rationalize this, you could come up with all sorts of compelling things based on history, based on how things have always been, based on everything you've experienced. This is the most likely outcome. And yet, the question is, can you predict with total certainty how the future's going to go? And of course, you can't, right? You don't have a crystal ball. You don't know with absolute certainty that that negative prediction is going to come to pass. Now, here's an important distinction. You cannot predict the future. Anxiety thinks it can. It knows how the future's going to go, and it knows that it's going to go to shit. That's anxiety's move. Especially when we're engaged in these negative predictions. It's certain that things are going to go badly. So we can distinguish between what your anxiety thinks and what you think. And again, I'm willing to bet that you cannot predict the future with total certainty. So the next question is, what's it like for you right now when you bring your attention back from that negative prediction about the future into the present moment? What's it like for you right now to be in the midst of this uncertainty? Now, it's normal to be a bit apprehensive in the face of the unknown. When we don't know something for sure, it is a universal human response to have a little bit of nervousness, to be a little fearful of that. And it makes sense because the unknown contains all of the good that we haven't yet realized in our lives, as well as all of the bad that we've not yet experienced in our lives. So we don't want to rush in. That's the function of that nervousness in the face of the unknown. It's to keep us from rushing in to a potentially harmful situation. Now, in these instances, curiosity really helps. It goes a long way if you can activate, mobilize your curiosity to start exploring the situation, rather than explaining it with these fearful negative predictions. So, in this uncertain situation in which you find yourself right now, what's it like for you to be in this state of not knowing? When people activate their curiosity in these kinds of situations, quite often what they find is they become a little more interested, a little more courageous. They actually get a little more excited about the possibilities that are available to them. And so there can be this kind of fizzy bubbling up within yourself that you might notice if you check in with your bodily experience right now in the midst of this uncertainty. You may very well find that there's actually something kind of pleasant about uncertainty. Instead of letting the fearful negative predictions go, oh, how is this gonna go? You might find a little more positively oriented way to ask that, like, oh, how is this gonna go? Again, you don't know for sure, but here's a follow-up question. In this state, when you've mobilized your curiosity and begun to explore your experience of the unknown, of this uncertainty, is this state more or less capable of accomplishing what you set out to accomplish? I'm willing to bet that compared to that bound up, stressed, tense, anxious situation, that what you experience in yourself right now is much more capable. The way that you experience yourself right now is much more likely to follow through on the goals that you've set for yourself. Now, you can check in. Again, this is just my guess based on working with dozens and hundreds of different entrepreneurs through this kind of practice. But what you'll likely find is that when you can check those negative predictions, test reality, and be honest with yourself that you can't predict the future with total certainty. If you then walk your attention back to the present moment and activate your curiosity rather than letting the default fear run the show, you're likely in a much better state to take effective action with clarity and with confidence toward what you want. Now, we could take this a step further. In this state of uncertainty and with this state in yourself, what do you want to become of this? There's a situation in which you find yourself, and there is some goal that you'd like to accomplish here. some value you'd like to fulfill. What is that? What is the positive, affirmative goal that you have set for yourself? Now, what I mean by that is it doesn't do you much good to say, well, I don't want things to fall apart, or I don't want to be a failure. It's like, well, that's all well and good, but that tells us what you don't want. So in this state of uncertainty, with this curiosity mobilized, what do you want? What do you want to become of this? And when you've established for yourself a positive, affirmative goal, then you can start to work backwards and ask, well, what does that ask of me in this current situation? You're going to start to then interpret the circumstances around you in light of what you actually hope to accomplish. Again, rather than the default move of anxiety, which is basically attempting to help you avoid bad outcomes. Anxiety is caught up playing not to lose. But what you want to do is play to win. And the way that you can do that is by checking in with what you want to become of this situation you're in right now. And when you've clarified that for yourself, then you can start to work backwards. Well, in order for that to happen, I would need this to happen. In order for this to happen, I would need this other thing to happen. In order for that to happen, right now, in this situation, A, B, or C is going to be the most probable way that I can fulfill on this goal that I've set for myself. So, hopefully you can see that in action. If you'd like, we could talk through a bit of a case study of this. I was working with a client who is in the tech space broadly. He's working on solving basically some mathematical problems associated with AI. And he's at a stage where he's having to go out and do direct outreach, basically prospecting with ideal clients. And he had this negative prediction that people are just going to tell him no, or that they're going to say his services cost too much. And when he checked in and he did a little reality testing, he saw that he actually didn't know for sure that people would say no to him. He didn't know for sure that they would say his services cost too much. But what he found is that when he entertained that line of thinking, oh, they're just going to say no, oh, it's going to cost too much, he got caught up in a state of anxiety. And he was much less likely to take the actions needed to accomplish his business goals. So we can see in a way that when we let anxiety run the show, it has a kind of insidious way of becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you believe that things are going to go poorly, you're in a much less effective state, and you're much less likely to take the actions that would bring about success. So then, you create more and more evidence that proves the anxiety right. Or maybe you show up to the pitch and you're a little cagey and edgy, and you don't actually declare what you'd like to be paid for your work. You know, any number of ways that you could flub the pitch when you let anxiety run the show. So in this client's case, we could check out that negative prediction, could walk ourselves back to the present moment and start to explore his experience of uncertainty, because he realized he could not predict the future with total certainty. So in this case, he started to wonder, well, yeah, you know, I'm unsure, it's a little hard to tolerate. For him, he found that this interest, this excitement, this kind of positive, bubbly quality in the uncertainty was actually pretty hard to tolerate. It was really tough for him to tolerate a positive feeling within himself. So we had to do all sorts of checking and rechecking these negative predictions. He said, well, if I do it, they're just going to say no, or, well, no one's going to respond to me. He kept taking flight into the future because the experience in the present moment was so intolerable. And this is one of the really important things that we've got to take into consideration when we're looking to resolve anxiety in our businesses. Anxiety involves this flight, this defensive maneuver away from something. And we can check in with these negative predictions all we want, but until we're able to actually tolerate the thing that we are attempting to avoid through all of these flights into the future, well, we're playing with a kind of stopgap solution at that point. So, what I'll encourage you to do is give this a go for yourself. Explore the ideas you have that lead to these negative predictions about the future. Check in with the reality of those. Do you actually believe that you can predict the future with total certainty? And if you can't, if you find yourself in the midst of the unknown, in the midst of uncertainty, explore for yourself. What's it like in that experience? And when you've connected to that kind of state, when you've mobilized your curiosity in the face of the unknown, then turn your attention toward what do you want to become of this? And when you've got a clear picture of what you hope to accomplish in this situation, then you can check step by step, what's it going to take for that to happen? And what is that going to take? And what is that going to take? And what is that going to take? Until you walk back to what you could do right here and right now to give yourself the best odds of success. That is a very reliable way to nip this anxiety in the bud and start to reclaim a sense of calm, confidence, and sustained energy in the present moment. That way you can take much more effective action toward the fulfillment of your goals with clarity and with confidence. So, I hope you find this to be useful. I'd love to hear what you think of it. If you want to drop a comment down below. If you liked the video, go ahead and actually like the thing, subscribe if you want to find more updates here. And if you'd like a set of eyes on your particular situation, so that you're no longer battling against exhaustion and overwhelm and just this reactivity to stress in your business, you can book a call with me directly at speakwithchandler.com. Can't wait to help get you through this situation, get you back to more calm, confidence, more sustained energy. Because I know that when you're in that state, you're going to make a much greater contribution with a lot more ease.